Welcome to everyone to this September 21st, 2023 special called session and work session of the Dickson County School Board. If you all please, if you will, join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Hall, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, Dr. Weeks has forwarded to us a proposed agenda. I would like for us to take a vote to approve that agenda or consider approving the agenda. Are there any additions or subtractions? Dr. Weeks, anything?
No, sir.
Your motion to approve the proposed agenda?
Move to approve.
A motion by Mr. Parker to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Haley. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. First on the agenda is the facility discussion, the long-term plans. Dr. Weeks.
Board members, in your packets under item 2A, I had taken the suggestions that came from our last planning session and reordered and reprioritized the things to the best of my understanding of what you'd asked that we do. In panel number 1, you'd requested that we demolish New Directions Academy during the first quarter of 2024. That would create a new middle space at the current existing site of Charlotte Middle School. We would add 16 classrooms approximately, address the front entrance and the traffic patterns there, update the core spaces, so that would be office area, kitchen, and cafeteria space, and then add a new gymnasium to that. So that was my understanding. That's priority number 1 for this board. Priority number 2 is to create a CTE space primarily for welding and construction at Creekwood High School. And again, we have shared with you that we do have the updated building that was redrawn and reconstructed after we received input from both you and county commissioners. And so that was priority number 2. My understanding your priority number 3 was a new central office to help consolidate the multiple spaces that are used around the county by different office and departments, helping with both efficiency and upgrading this building. And then 4th, my understanding, Dickson Elementary School was your priority, that we look at classroom additions, ADA compliance, the gymnasium, and cafeteria upgrades. And so the ADA compliance is mainly related to the gymnasium and the cafeteria. Supporting all that work or going simultaneously with that work, you see in the panel along the bottom of that document would be that we have miscellaneous short-term capital projects, and we'll address that under item 2B, and that we address roofing, parking lots, HVAC, athletic facilities, and other aesthetic improvements. So this was a summary of what that I heard from that planning session, and then with the takeaways that I believe that you had requested and prioritized as such. And so again, I think we had requested a meeting with County Commission, and the last conversation that I had with the mayor and commissioners was that was tentatively scheduled for October 16th. That's a Monday, and we would do that prior to the County Commission meeting at 6 o'clock. So I hope I summarized that as best I could for you. I think one thing that the board had discussed was, I'd say, putting some budgetary numbers, maybe some bolder budgetary numbers down in the bottom of that. We do have those numbers, I think, for Charlotte Middle School. We've got some tentative numbers for the CTE space at Creekwood High School, but they involve the building only. They do not involve any site work. civil work or anything like that because this board has not decided exactly where to place that building. And so the site work and engineering for that building would be very contingent upon whether it's placed on the soccer field, which is a recommended location, whether it's placed somewhere situated behind Creekwood High School, which again, the situation with that was all the utilities coming in the back. But regardless of where we place that building, where you'd like that building placed, there's going to need to be a lot of engineering and a lot of site work and site design for that. So we have an estimate, budget estimate for the building cost itself, but no engineering around that. Central office, we have done no planning at all, and I don't have any budget estimate on that because that just came up last meeting. And then again, with Dickson Elementary School, I think we have some rough numbers that Lyle Cook Martin and Hewlett Spencer had given us without the ADA compliance issues or just the classroom addition. So if it's the will of this board, I could tentatively put those numbers on there as budgetary numbers. But again, they're only going to be, it may be better to leave them off with all the conditions that still apply to placing numbers on there. So that was my understanding from our last planning session.
All right, so we got folks here from Hewlett Spencer, Mr. Bargatze. Anything else to add? Yes, sir. Anything else to add to those comments?
I think particularly on the potential board site, whether it be a renovated space or a freestanding new building. Other than that, there's a lot of questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we can say though, like as far as office space goes, with the central office space, we know about what it costs per square foot. And if we kind of know about what square foot we're going to build, we can, I guess, just have a guesstimate of a number to present other than presenting nothing. You know what I mean? Am I right when I say that?
I suppose we could, based on a true square footage number. We've had no design conversations with Hewlett Spencer about how many office spaces we need. What does a supervisor's office look like as compared to a secretarial office? How many conference rooms you'd like to have? Kitchen, office space, break rooms, and things like that. What type of boardroom you'd like to have? But I think we could probably discuss a range on those things and look at some other buildings that have currently been built. I know Franklin Special School District is currently building a new central office as we speak. And again, I think this board needs to give direction as to whether the intent is to renovate a current space that we already have, or as Mr. Bargatze said, tear something down, build from scratch, or find land to build that on. So again, we could do whatever is most preferred.
Other comments, questions about the long range plan proposal?
I think there might be a typo there. It says 16 classrooms. You got 20. 20 classrooms.
I think that was the debate back and forth, and that's what they were looking for direction, or whether 16 or 20. Sounds like you would like 20.
Well, here's what we got to do. We've got to make sure that we have the space for NDA. So, use this space back here. We got to make sure that that's the cheapest time to get you 4 classrooms when you're built. Come in later and try to do something, it's going to be expensive. So, but I'd like to stick to the original plan of 20.
So just to, so I guess a couple of things on this discussion of the central office. It just recently come up in the last maybe couple of meetings as well.
No, I'm talking about the first.
No, I understand. But I'm just jumping over to the central office. Unless there are other questions, certainly. I was just going to bring up on the central office. I think the location that Mr. Bargatze was talking about was the old Oakmont space. Is that correct? Is that right, Mr. Bargatze? Yes, sir. Okay. So I think that's some of that has been the discussion, but we don't have anything definitive. But to your point, certainly Charlotte Middle is the 20 classrooms have been discussed. We do have a range, Dr. Weeks. What is the range for that?
In general, I think most office space, I think the number we were given was 240 to 250 a square foot, and that would be exclusive of a boardroom because again, the board would want to design a boardroom that pleases the board. But I think in general office space, the number that I was given was about 240 to 250 per square foot.
Okay. But back on Charlotte Middle, what was the range on that? Do you recall?
Charlotte Middle, Ron, do you have that estimate for us? That was
There's the amount of variables there, and particularly when it comes to 16 or 20 classrooms.
Right.
That 20 classrooms are going to be somewhere from 1.9 to 2.3 million dollars more. There are other things that are triggered there, including where new directions is going to be, when that's going to happen. There's just a lot of unanswered questions.
Well, we've already got the new directions over here in this wing, and I believe this drawing is. Look, Mark. Anyway, I've got it right here. This is what I understood from what we were given. This wing being the newest wings, we put new directions back here. Talked about how easy it would be to section this off. We've got 2 stories, 10 classrooms. Now they came back last week trying to save us money, but for what was it, 1.8, 2.3 million dollars?
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
That's pretty cheap. Easier to put a room on now than years down the road.
Mr. Underwood, my recollection, and may be wrong, was somewhere in the 24 to 26 million dollar range, something like that. But there also kind of a caveat to that was potentially having to add electrical. I recall maybe $2 to $3 million. So HVAC.
The contingent parts were for a new HVAC system if we chose to do that on the existing Charlotte Middle, and I think Tyler gave us an estimate of $2 to $3 million on that. Another $2 to $3 million on the roof at Charlotte Middle School, potentially. That would have to be engineered, and that would have to be a decision that this board makes. But I think while they're there,
that was for the old parts. That wasn't for this new part, right?
Exactly. That's the entire building of Charlotte Middle as it exists today. Yes, sir. So probably another $4 to $5 million on that.
So you're looking at probably 28. Yeah. You're bumping up against 28 to $30 million for the school.
Right, but we've got to do that HVAC anyway.
Right.
And it comes with the new, it's worked in with it.
Yeah. Sure. I just wanted us to have an idea of what the total cost was going to be on that building. And then you move on to CTE, and it's Dr. Weeks just a
CTE building's $2.2 to $2.4 million, and again, that's without engineering. So that's all of the construction costs. That's the materials for that, electricity and everything. So it does include the restroom facilities as we talked about, and the space for the woodworking shop and the areas in front of there. So let's just say $2.5 million plus or minus. I'm going to say $400,000 to $500,000 for geotech work and engineering the site. And depending upon which site the board chooses, obviously there could be some expenses related to moving utilities or rerouting utilities, things of that nature.
So, and then kind of number 3, I think at one point we had 1, 2, and 3 being including Dickson Elementary. The board just in discussion, I think we've moved that to more or less maybe like
5 year.
4 or 5 year down the road, and then central office being a consideration that we would work maybe through to get an idea on. But we're looking as a board, as I understand, to put together a kind of a longer range plan of 1 to 3 years and then 3 to 5 years. Maybe the 3 to 5 years may or may not involve the central office and or Dickson Elementary. We'd like to include it in a package that we send to the county commission. Let's pause there. I'm sure you all were watching and saw the county commission meeting. Those folks have concerns about, where this board is headed, what I gathered, and we're going to go over a short range or shorter term capital plan. This board has spent, I want to emphasize, we've spent at least 2 years, if not longer, coming to this consensus. And Charlotte Middle, I'm going to start speaking for a little bit for me, a little bit for the board, in as much as Charlotte Middle is, that's a need. It's not a want, it's a need. It's something that's needed. You look at our numbers and it's at 99% in many instances. So we don't need to stall this. We don't need to wait. We need to move forward with it. And so whether it's Dr. Weeks sitting in that seat or whether it's some other director, these 6 seats are the ones that control the direction of where our building plan is headed. So I am speaking on behalf of the board, asking that we move that forward, move this forward, move the plan. So with
Hang
that,
on a second.
yes, sir.
I agree exactly with Mr. Vanderbilt said about it being a need. I think that our terminology might be a little wrong on long-term, short-term. I think what we're calling long-term is what we can't afford out of our fund balance to do by ourselves. What we're calling long-term is something that we're going to have to ask the county to help us pay for. And what we're calling short-term is something that we can afford to pay for out of our fund balance. We're calling it long-term or short-term, but I think that's the wrong terminology because it's not, Charlotte's not a long-term thing. It's a right now thing, as Mr. Vanderbilt said, and what we're going to go on short term is also roofs, parking lots. They're all right now things too. They're just what we can afford to ask the commission to let us spend out of our fund balance and do by ourselves. The long term projects that we're talking about, the CTE, the Charlotte Middle, and the central office too, are not really long term. They're kind of right now, and I guess we're looking at maybe it's a long term project. It's going to take it longer to do, but it's projects that have to be done no matter what. As Mr. Kirk said, that it's got to be done no matter who's in the seat over there. And to think of it as long term, I would rather think of it as what we need the county to help us do, not necessarily what's in the far 5-year future. I think the 5-year future, Dickson Elementary, that's a good plan. In 5 years, that plan might change. It might get better. It might get worse. It might end up being some other school that has more of a need than they do at that time, and it might move around. I think it is good to have that plan and have that there. But a lot of these long-term plans, I think, are more short-term than we're making them out to be.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Mr. Haley?
I want to echo what both of y'all said. I agree with both of you. I think what I'm hearing from the commissioners is what we're saying is not being. I think it's our fault. When I say it's long range, I look at we have 8,000 kids now. What happens when we get to 12,000 kids? What happens to 15,000? So you have a range from growth in numbers in projected years. Not even put short term, but include stuff that needs to be done now. That's what I gather talking individually some is we know what these things are they're going to come up with the year two. We know what this short term list has on it. But combining that into one plan to say whose skills needs, I think is what they're telling me they want. And it's driven not only by time but by population. And the real need to show. Charlotte showed. Also show that what happens 5, 10 years down the road when William James plan then. What I plan now, while I lay out that plan, is a moving target in the board, the board, what all the change on that phone range is done. We have to have a plan out there that this is what we plan. And as those numbers change and as those student populations change, it'll get adjusted every 5 or 10 years. We gotta look 20 years down the road along with it. I'll maybe go forward what you're calling long range, but what range it's that.
Other comments by board members? So, Dr. Weeks, as far as a recommendation on this capital project, these 4 different projects, what is your recommendation that we do as far as moving it forward to the commission?
I'd make 2 recommendations. My first recommendation would either be to instruct Hewlett Spencer Lyle Cook Martin to include or exclude HVAC system and roofing, because that's a big contingency pot on the Charlotte Middle School. So I think this board either needs to give them direction, yes, let's go ahead and plan on replacing those things, or no, let's don't, and let's proceed with what we have. And that's what you said, Mr. Underwood, the 20 classrooms. And again, that's what I think this board has pretty much agreed to. But I guess an affirmation of that too. So maybe that becomes 3 recommendations. So does this board want to go ahead with a new roof on the entire Charlotte Middle School project? Does this board want to go ahead and complete the HVAC rework as Mr. Clifton had recommended at the existing Charlotte Middle School, and verify that you do want 20 classrooms? And whether we do that, and that only pertains to block number 1.
Mr. Vandervoort.
Mr. Parker, hold on, let him finish.
Then my second recommendation that I think would have an immediate need would be to give Lyle Cook Martin, give Tim Little and the engineering folks that have been working on the CTE space at Creekwood, give them some direction as to where do we want that space. Do we want it on the recommended space, or do we want it somewhere else around back? Where could we go with that? Now, that decision might not be made until we get over into the fund balance discussion, because again, I think that is going to have a lot to do with whether this board proceeds to move forward with artificial field turfing. And again, I think we received some direction from County Commission and or the mayor related to his thought, or I guess those were mayor's thoughts, not County Commission's thoughts, but about the athletic field space and his desire that's something that I think we would like to move forward with. So I think in making that decision, whether you do that now or whether we do that later, I think that's an essential part of that. So 3 recommendations related to pane 1, 1 recommendation related to pane number 2. And then if New Central Office is in there, I would prefer that a new director of schools deal with the issue of a New Central Office, because what I might want in that building could be completely different from a new director. So I would agree that needs to be held.
Mr. Parker?
How many schools? We have 16 schools. If we do, and I don't know, I'm not saying that every 5 years something's probably got to be done to something. And if we do Charlotte, and we do it with the new roof and the new HVAC, and Charlotte's done, and every 5 years that we move to another school to do maybe not as big of a project as this, but a fairly big project, maybe big William James, or we move to Dickson Elementary or wherever we move to do that project. Every 5 years we do that. When we get done with all the schools, Charlotte is 80 years old. And so to not do it all right now while we need it, while it is a need, to get Charlotte done, and we can get past that, and it can be our kids' problem when Charlotte comes back around at 80 years old, our grandkids' problem, and So as far as that goes, just to do it all right now, and in 5 years we're going to move to our school. Charlotte Middle will be done, but by the time we get through 16 schools doing a major project in 5 years, or maybe a new project or a new facility, we're going to roll back around to Charlotte in 80 years, and it'll be needed then.
Other comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Hayden.
Just park for a little perspective, my granddad's on the school board, when they did the first revamp of Charlotte, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So it may be a couple of generations. The point is made that it's an ongoing issue with buildings, and I think I'm looking forward, Mayor, to the joint meeting with commissioners, if nothing else, for an educational session, because I know it's frustrating to you to watch us talk 2 or 3 hours, but we're really on the planning aspect. And particularly frustrating for me when I watch and see the questions that I'm on all out, know the answer, but I'm in my recliner watching. So I think the opportunity for us to speak to each other in real time would probably bring it all together. Because what you're saying is no different than what I've been hearing or what we're doing. Yeah, knowledge of all the different things we done, even on paper in a format you can look at without me there, understanding seems to be considered a holding block. While we see these blocks right here, there's more to it than that. Just like the money in reserves discussion itself, where it comes from, but it's from the revenue budget. But that money is there for one-time expenses. It's there for roof repairs. It's there for the athletic build-up things. It's there for the kids. And I relate it largely to having a candy bar sell at a school, not letting them spend all their money the next 2 or 3 years. Then it builds up and we take it and put it somewhere else. Those needs that money is there for exist. I'm not real fond of doing 2 lists. I'm not real fond of doing a reserve money list versus a building plan list. To me, I envision seeing it all together, maybe earmarking on there what we want that money to go to, what we have ideas for it going to. But ultimately, it's my job for the plan out there. We put a plan and we agree to the full plan under one plan. And as a board member, I've done my job. I've told you what I need. And funding it is your job. And it's not an easy job. And I don't expect you to fund it all because those plans can get quite of effort sometimes. But if I can separate that plan from the need now versus need 5 years down the road versus projected by a number of students 10 years from now, that puts it in perspective. And you see why we have the money reserves. And just spending it on a project here or there without it being in a full package of Charlotte School and other things that need to be done, it takes where I'd ask for it to go. All I can spend is reserve money. I'm probably going to be asking you for different things to spend that on than I am if it's all packaged together. Say for 7, 8 years, the facilities here are 50 years old at high school, and they need to be done at one time. We board members need to approve to get that design done on that. The school's done, have to look at it and draw something out, so Dr. Wicks has. I'm talking about the whole complex. I hear soccer, baseball, softball, football, and also track, the old tennis courts. There's a lot of facilities we use, not just by the students, but by the community. And I'd rather see us spend money for the design to come in and lay out where that's going to be, other than just doing a field or a track that we might not address the stain and it might not address other fields and how they play in. It costs some money, but you would have a professional design. This is what we need. And if you have up in that, it's fine. But we know after we finish one step, what the next step's going. I'll say that with all the buildings. So I think combining one plan, we've got to October to get that done. I think the information's there. It's just a presentation.
Any other comments by board members? Thoughts? So what I'm hearing, Dr. Weeks, those recommendations, providing clarity as to our plan, this portion of it, which is a capital project, as to Charlotte Middle, the CTE building, and then kind of lumping central office and maybe Dickson Elementary in a longer range discussion. But what I'm hearing him say is we're going to move this forward. We need to give our engineers some direction on how to present, what to present as far as Charlotte Middle, the HVAC, the roofing, and the 20 classroom. So first off, is there a motion to be made to move this portion forward? And if so, what's the content of the motion?
Well, I think we need to discuss in the roofing and the
Okay.
HVAC.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the roof and the HVAC?
We need air conditioners, right? Air conditioners
And roof.
and roofing. We gotta have roof. And to me, I don't see much discussion there. We gotta have a roof, we gotta have a roof.
Most buildings have a roof.
One that leaks, not a good.
Mr. Vanderboard,
Yes, sir, Mr. Parker.
can we, if I can get a second, we'll discuss the motion. I'd like to make a motion to continue with the project, including roof and HVAC replacement on the old building.
Okay. So I'm understanding, and you're talking about the 20 classrooms?
I'm not. I'm talking about a motion to replace the roof and the HVAC on the existing building during the construction.
Okay. All right, we have a motion as far as Charlotte Middle to replace the HVAC system and the roofing as far as it being a part of this project. We have that motion. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Brogdon. Any further discussion? Mr. Haley?
I fully agree. If we're gonna do that, it needs to be, if we leave Charlotte, it needs to be a new building. You start off with a new building discussion. Figure it off as a mean on to save money. Talk again, we'll figure it off with that, we're gonna have old mechanical. There's a breaking point, there's a cost. Where it becomes not economical to do have to a certain level of a new building. But I think we do have to have those numbers to know that. But I'm afraid when you get those numbers back for the roof, the mechanical, also have windows involved in that. That may go right back at is a new building more efficient as opposed to having the old. So yes, I agree with that. I agree with the motion from that standpoint. If you're going to do it all. But we also need those numbers to know. That will come when they get those numbers.
Parker, just to clarify your motion, you are specifically speaking to Charlotte Middle School and that project moving forward. You're asking for those items to be included in the Charlotte Middle project.
Yes, sir.
We have any other comments on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Vanderboard,
Yes.
Ms. Brogdon. Yes. Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
All ayes.
All ayes.
Motion carries. And so next, yes, sir, Mr. Underwood.
I'd like to make a motion, change it back to 20 classrooms instead of 16.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Underwood to change the project from 16 to 20 classrooms as far as the Charlotte Middle School. For a second to the motion.
Second for discussion.
Second by Mr. Haley. Any further discussion on the motion? Yes, sir. Okay.
Mr. Barton, I understand you right. Your motion was to include the mechanical and the roof in what we were going to do here. It really didn't address 16 or 20.
Yes, sir. Correct.
So that, pardon for the record, that was for the mechanical and the roofing to make sure it's included in it. So Mr. Underwood, motion is to go from 16 to 20, and I think that discussion here to begin with, I'm sure we had room for EDA. We have to have a lot of discussion, and we're going to use that back pod. So maybe I'm all for we need that. Pod, we're gonna get place for that. So, I'll do that out.
In it guarantees NDA comes back to Charlotte, and it guarantees the NDA probably won't leave Charlotte. And if NDA needs to be centralized to the city of Dickson as a central spot in the county, in the city of Dickson or in the central part of the Dickson County, I don't think that we'll ever be able to move NDA out of that back pod if we put those extra classrooms up there. If we take those, if we move NDA and there could be another discussion as far as somewhere in the middle of our central office in our Dickson Elementary School, when we tear down the old Oakmont and we'll build a new central office right there, there's plenty of room to build a facility for NDA right there, which put them right in the central of Dickson County instead of sticking NDA, which is a county school. It's not that we don't NDA doesn't have a boundary. We're not. They're county schools. They're kids from all the way from one side of the interstate all the way up to Montgomery County line going there. So if we put that 16 class, if we change to 20 classrooms, I don't think we'll ever move NDA out of Charlotte.
Charlotte is in the very center of the county. So anybody going to NDA in the county, Charlotte is the center of the county. So I think Charlotte is a more centralized location when it comes to getting our kids, those kids to school.
We're talking about a distance of 7 miles that I drive on a regular consistent basis. It's not the end of the world. And moreover, I agree with Mr. Underwood. We got the opportunity to expand our seating, our ability to have more classroom space. Now is the time to do it. We're trying to take care of issues that, for not 10 years, but 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road, because that's the county commission talked on Monday about it probably being 2030. 32, the next borrowing pot may be available. So you're trying to take care of issues that'll take you down the road, and that's what this would do. This board, whoever is here, has the ability to put NDA anywhere they want to put it. Anywhere they want to put it. So to say it'll never move, I would never say never. Certainly it could. We're trying to deal with the here and now, an opportunity. Yes, sir.
It doesn't guarantee that the board may accept the decision by programming. And I think the next stage will be interest of what that program will be. I think the point of doing the classrooms was to alleviate tearing the building down to occupy a program and leaving it with us space. So it leaves the option for the space. We know what this group thinks. We know to make a difference, but I don't want to just build away from a program that I think out of school, in society. Everybody that have an opportunity for those kids, and I don't see that go away. All the stuff. That's the program.
I find it hard that in one time, if we're going to decide to build a facility for NDA in the future, that a county commission is going to say, why would we loan you the money for that when you have plenty of seats there? But the seats, NDA is more than the seats. That they're taking up a whole building right now. And we're going to put them in a pod. while we do the construction, but they're taking up the whole building right now. I don't know that it's going to be a change for them. But as the program grows in the future, will they fit right now? I think they will. I don't know if we have the numbers on NDA or not, but if the program grows, then will they fit there in the future? We could always move them, sure. Could we build them a new facility somewhere, a permanent facility? It's made for them, and as the program grows, it grows and grows and grows. Right now, I don't think it'd grow too much in that pod, or we're just going to be like, okay, we got to find something else somewhere else. But my thoughts.
Would agree with you.
Other questions, comments, thoughts on the motion? That motion, again, is for 20 classrooms for Charlotte Middle project. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Vandervoort,
Yes?
Ms. Brogdon? Yes. Mr. Haley?
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
No,
Motion carries. Okay. Any other discussion or motions on Charlotte Middle School, that project? Dr. Weeks, on that project, now, you made those recommendations. Anything else? You think that's sufficient to give them direction for?
Yes, sir. I think we'll get with Live Cook Martin first thing in the morning, make sure they understand to go ahead and plan for the both of those systems to be upgraded on the existing facility.
That can be a presentation that we could present on October the 16th.
I would assume so.
Okay. Discussion on the CTE building, part of a plan.
I'd like to see the drawing. One unisex bathroom in each of the two halves of the building. What happens into the class when you've got a line of students that need to use the facilities, they need to wash their hands? I mean, classroom thing. I mean, it needs to be more than one, one load in each bathroom. I don't think it needs to be unisex.
Of course, I'm assuming that's something that they can add out.
I think they could add that. I think our intent there was that this would not be primary restroom facility. It's kind of more as needed if you are in the shop area, that the main restrooms are in the existing facility of Creekwood. And so students going to and from class would use that facility. But if this board would like to have that redrawn, we can certainly do that as well. Standard bathrooms, 2 or 3 toilets, 2 or 3 toilets or urinals.
if we redraw that, can we draw that to the outside and not take up shop space? I don't know. Obviously, it would depend on where the location is at, and if it's if there's room to maybe add it to the outside of the building instead of making a bathroom the size of this room in the middle of the shop or to the corner of the shop. You know what I mean?
So they put the bathroom connected on both sides of that wall. Male and female.
That could do.
That would work out well. Then you still only have 2 bathrooms.
Right.
Picture and panel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think you'd want them inside the building, not outside. That's just my own.
You can make probably the outside, you get some more space, but you get a pipe through things like that.
Yeah, I would think about, you know.
All that's going to be, get you more space.
Right. Yeah, just the, I'm talking about outhouse. Yeah.
No.
More floor space or something like that. Yeah, just to not take up shop room,
Yeah.
You add a bathroom in there, just you had standard bathroom, you're going to take up shop floor. that, it's gonna be for bathrooms of a class with 15 kids, so.
I got greasy dirty hands, so you gotta go to the other part of the building to wash. Open doors.
Sure.
Going down the hall.
Yeah, wash, yeah. I guess the other question that Dr. Weeks has kind of posed to us with this building, what would be the location? Where would we put it? So that goes into this equation. I think the proposed spot is on the current existing soccer fields. So with that comes a discussion. One, or is that the placement that we want, where we want it? And two, that would obviously necessitate doing something different with existing fields that we have, which discussion has been the turf fields. So what are the thoughts on that?
If we put it on the soccer field, it will take up less than half the soccer field. Is that correct? Where the kids could practice there.
Yes, sir. According to the athletic director and the girls soccer coach, that was correct. What we had estimated was there's a concession stand building that sits up as you're facing the field. From what I recall, it would go from the existing end zone far enough away from the barns. They're built down in the ag area. It would come up to approximately the right-hand side of the concession stand, a little bit further than that. So
they still have 2/3 of the field down there.
At least, yes, sir. And, we talked about the drop-off. There's a pretty good drop-off on what I would say is the right side of there. So I think they'd have to be careful which direction they kicked and maybe some larger nets or larger fencing down there.
I just need to get a vision. So they would practice there, and then their games would be on the football field like they do at some of these other schools.
I think even if this board proceeds with turf, I believe they would actually even practice on the new turf field once that's in place. But yes, in the temporary while that's all being constructed, I think they would practice on that extra space or leftover space, and then play their ball games on the football field.
The trouble with females soccer league starts early, just like the football. Football team is going to be on the field. They're not going to want half the field being taken up by the soccer team. So I'm trying to figure out a way to make sure we understand that during football season is also girls soccer. So we've got to make sure that we take care of the girls soccer. Have them a place to practice. Like if we put the CTE there, I think we can still practice to a certain extent. Might want to get over on the football field from time to time. But as far as the game goes, whether it's turf or not, we don't have a place there for the game. We have to go. But make it wrong.
Principal and athletic director told me that would not be a problem.
Well,
Just to add a little bit or comment on Mr. Underwood saying, I think it's always a struggle, especially on gymnasium sports. I know just between boys and obviously have bigger facilities like Crickwood Best, they can split the gym, but our middle schools struggle. I don't think it's a struggle. I had a kid go through there. It was a struggle for me to practice the second time, but I think as far as the coaches and the kids worked it out to where the boys would practice first and the girls would practice second. They kind of swapped weeks, and I think they did the same thing with volleyball. When volleyball season overlaps a little bit of basketball season or basketball practices, they work it out together as the coaches and athletic directors, and it seems to work fairly smooth. I think they could do the same thing with football and soccer. Just my thoughts.
yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
I hear the call. I think there's no doubt there's a desire for the CT building. Started off from parking lot, adding on the building on the soccer field. If you start adding a building, you're taking away the space at the same time. What they want today It's kind of, you're getting rid of space down the road. Troubles me to think about putting that building in a soccer field. Back in the parking lot, you can attach to the building. Then I remember our discussion about the parking spaces. So I looked at maybe moving part of that building off the parking lot, part of it being owned, to minimize which is space. Yeah, parking space, you can park down the field and stuff, but yeah, a soccer space can't get taller than there. Yeah, that's whatever you do that parking building. You like the soccer field or even I want to leave it in on where I'm like system facility. And right back to watching the meeting Monday night, I think for the big plan. We'll leave it. When that building being a certain lot tonight doesn't gain anything. Got a meeting next week. October joint week. It's whether we do it this part tonight or not, it's not as much of a piece standpoint as the space in Charlotte. A lot of concerns that we're getting into. Not trying to derail you, Mr. Chairman. I understand what you're doing.
Oh, it's not my plan. It's our plan. That's what we've talked about for 2.5 years.
We take 3 or 4 votes for 3 or 4 buildings, 3 or 4 names, we're right back where we were. But now we're not translating that message to these guys, these ladies. So the Charlotte part is a no-brainer. The CT is a need, and I was great having a bathroom for kids to sit in at this point in time. All those on the horizon. But we have to look back at that parking lot, turn sideways, back up the soccer field. Put concessions down in the bathroom behind it. There's the extra bathrooms, concession set both. There's got to be a better way.
The engineers want to look at that, and that's what they're recommending with the soccer field.
No, sir. They reconstructed the building based upon the recommendations that, we had the full rafters, the metal building, the brico blocks and stuff. But they've done nothing, no place. They're waiting on this board to tell them where to put it.
Well,
So they've not made any decisions at all.
the trouble is this board isn't. We need some direction where we can put it.
We do have blueprints and drawings that show where all the existing utilities are. And I know the first time that this was recommended to this board, which was basically on the side of the parking lot back here at Creekwood, right in front of that back wing. From my understanding, every utility that services that building went right underneath that building. So water, electricity, gas, so that's all the utilities. But would have gone right underneath that building where it was first recommended placement. And again, that could end up being the most efficient place, depending on.
Is that why they didn't put it back?
I wasn't part of the original design, no sir.
The originals in the parking lot, the utilities didn't go under that. The utilities came into play when we asked to attach it to the building. When we put it closer attached to the building, that's when the utilities came in. In the parking lot area, we didn't have utilities. I haven't seen the plans yet, but I don't see them running the utilities in the parking lot, are they?
The original design was clear of everything, but one wire going to one cell.
So the parking lot probably isn't out of the question. I think the way it was set to begin with, it took up a lot of spaces. Can it be turned sideways back up on the soccer field? I just want to make sure that I'm okay with the other option before I soccer field. That anything else?
I concur with that.
There's some spaces where parking can.
Soccer field. I hate to destroy the game, really. And it's certainly not any contradictory, but we had 2 work sessions planned to have these discussions. everybody welcome to hear them, but a work session is more gonna share ideas and how well, and, you know, chain events change that, so we're not in a work session, we're in a meeting, so it almost, then that's what I feel like talking about planning, because vote me. So it's, I think we need to do that one. Before I go, you look at that.
Well, let me ask you this, if the board want to, see if Wildwood Martin or Hewlett Spencer can come out and propose, look at the sites that we have, try to get enough information within a week, suggest and propose different sites for it. We know there are two now. Are there others? And what, in their opinion, is the best site? If they can do that, Mr. Borganski, is that something you all? I'm getting a thumbs up that his group can do that.
And that gets us right back in, no disrespect to them doing it, but we're gonna be going to Lockwood Martin for design, having those spots, we want to just go in for a county to look at it. They're doing that to the facilities for other counties right now, and
Well, when I'm looking at, when I'm talking about them, I'm talking about hopefully those two groups together can
That's
come up
okay
with
also.
who can do it. I'm not
they can do it together, I can do it.
Find where it can go. And I guess that's the main question, where can it go? And then when we find out where it can go, then we can make a decision on where to put it. Because if it can't go here and it can't go here, there's no reason to talk about it. Where can it go? And then we can make our decision on that.
Well, it seems like what I'm hearing, we all want to do it. It's just a matter of where it would be located. So generally, not everybody's shaking their head, but generally,
We want to do it, and I don't
I
want,
think that's the consensus. We want to do it.
I want to do it, but I want it to be right.
Okay. We'll put that on the agenda for next Thursday's regular meeting for discussion. And then the next couple of items, the new central office, any discussion on that.
Who's doing the Franklin Special Schools? Do you know?
I think it's a very good idea, and I think it's something that it's not needed today, but it is needed for the future. I would like to see us included in a plan, but maybe just not a 3 to 5 year plan down the road. So that's just my thought.
I'm okay with that, we, you know, I'm playing on out for showing that, I know we talked about it. It shows immediate, and what you're gonna do down the road. What I'm hearing they're gonna want is a plan, not to pick and choose, but to see the needs and work on that. I think the presentation, what has been tier presentation.
Any further discussion on the central office? Things? Or about Dickson Elementary? All right, do we want to take any vote on this tonight, or have we want to reserve it for the regular meeting on next Thursday? The general fall this week. I'm sorry?
Next week.
Table.
If we delay anything, I wouldn't say that, but it does need information and it could be ongoing.
Dr. Weeks, I guess what is outstanding is just the placement of the CTE building ideas. And then I guess kind of shoring up what generally the cost would be for that HVAC and the roofing. Other comments? Tell you what, let's take about a 5-minute break.
He's so good.
Does it make a difference? Yeah. Trying to be loud.
You're good.
Yellow.
It's blocked.
You're not maybe come on slides. Like you're square over here.
Okay, this is thank you all. We'll take seats and we'll go and get started back. We're going to move on to item 2B under facility discussion, the short-term plans. Dr. Weeks.
Board members, I did not want you to ignore page that was behind your building plan. As we talk and as you have conversations with different folks, I know there was some discussion at our last meeting about available spaces and things of that nature. And I just did this as kind of a straw poll, really. But if you'll, the left side of that document, you see the current enrollment. That was as of our last board meeting. The LGA capacity is what the Lewis Group identified as the capacity of that building and the percentage of that capacity. So we have been working from those three columns. After last meeting, there was some discussion about how many students could be placed in a building. And so I asked principals, so this is not me, this is not anybody professionally coming to study, but I just asked principals, how many folks could you hold in your building if we needed some empty seats and we needed to rezone or we need to move some people there? So you will see the comparison. Let's just start at Centennial. Centennial, the Lewis Group said that building can hold 800 folks. And talking with the principal, she says she thinks she could take 900. So I gave the new capacity at 75.7%, and there was a 13% change in capacities based on what the Lewis Group recommended versus what the principal had said to us. And so you can take that on down through that entire list. I did not do our high schools because, again, we just corrected some spacing issues at Dickson County High School, and Creekwood High School is what it is. But I did want you to have that information for your usage and just for how you might like to use that. So you can put that in your file. Item 2B. Yes, sir.
I would
Sorry.
point out on that, I'm glad I saw it somewhere. Charlotte Middle School, 99.6. Correct.
Yes.
That's where they are presently.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. There is a need. It is not a want. So I apologize for interrupting.
No problem at all. Item 2B is that list. And again, I would agree that these are not necessarily all short-term projects. And again, I like the term projects that we could easily take care of out of our fund balance and that we could handle from our fund balance, or maybe with a little assistance here and there. But you have seen this list many times. We've discussed that. And I think these are some things that we would like to proceed with. And you see several columns where items are IP in progress. So security system upgrades, we are currently working on those. You see the Welcome Center has been completed. The turf fields, again, I shared with you some dates that we could tour some facilities. Most of you were very flexible. I think Mr. Vandervoort and Mr. Parker preferred the October date, and I don't have that date right off the top of my head, but it was mid-October. If that date suits everyone well, I'll schedule that date. And Mr. Underwood had also recommended, instead of us just viewing new facilities, that we also look at a facility that's had turf for a period of time so that we could discuss maintenance of the turf and upkeep of the turf with them, so that we get a good feel of what new turf looks like, what the maintenance requirements on new turf are, and some input from someone who has had turf for a period of time. So we'd like to add that if we possibly can. But again, that October date, we'll try to circulate that around, make sure that's still good for everyone. And we might need to leave another little bit earlier than we'd originally planned so that we could visit 3 facilities, but to take care of that. So those two, the turf fields at Creekwood High School, Dickson County High School. The sidewalk at Dickson County High School is in progress, and we will be actually taking care of some things. 2 weeks before fall break on there. We're taking some bids, or we have a proposal for bids on exterior painting at Dickson County High School. The gym at Creekwood, you had asked that we bring the recommendation from Lyle Cook Martin to be prepared to send bids out on that. So that will be done in the fall. Roofs, you see roofing projects that need to be taken care of. Soffit repair at Dickson County High School. We had talked about doing a welcome center at Van Leer for security purposes to take place this summer. Again, the field lighting projects we had talked about would be in conjunction with our plans for turf fields if that follows through. At William James Middle, almost the bottom of that page 4, the concrete footballing around the field entrance. We're currently preparing to do some work on that already, so that we have some concrete around the concession stand and bathroom areas, and kind of get rid of some of that gravel and looseness up in there, and probably connect that to some handicap accessible seating, so there's a nice smooth transition there. And then we'll probably phase that out in a couple of places. At Dickson Middle School, we are working on some gym windows and covering in some of the windows there at Dickson Middle School, and then doing some painting both inside and outside. Creekwood High School needs some paving. Well, a lot of our buildings need some paving to take care of sealing and striping parking lots. So you see that extensive list, and again, I would like again, outside of the turf fields and the turf conversation, we can look at those. But again, I think we are prepared to do some exterior painting if we can get the bids out on those, and those come back. And we're probably prepared to do some striping of parking lots, maybe not the resurfacing and sealing, but I think we're ready to do some striping of those and making sure we don't lose our lines and our places that are on those parking lots, and probably looking at some painting and some other areas. So I put this on there again for what I'd probably like to do and request that we take a look at is by our next meeting next Thursday night, I'd probably like to have a condensed list, if you would, and where we could probably take this down to 5, 6, 7, 8 items that we can easily take care of, let's say very easily out of our fund balance, bring those to you in the form of a budget amendment, so that if you approve that list, we would have that budget amendment to carry to the county commission and ask to take money from our fund balance to go ahead and complete those projects. And again, I think that'll be a relatively small amount of money based on our fund balance, maybe $400,000, $500,000 to take care of some of these smaller projects that we could go ahead and get knocked out, and particularly do that before the weather gets bad in some of these places, and just take care of that. So if you have something that you see that you would for sure like to see on that, we could prioritize those and make sure those get on that list. Or if you have other preferences for that, I'd be glad to take your input on any of that.
Board thoughts, comments?
I'd like to make a statement,
Underwood?
if I could, on this, just for the benefit of the commissioners that are here. Just on the items that we have bids on, as far as estimates on, rather, it comes out to be $18 million out of our fund balance. That's not counting what we don't have estimates on. This is all maintenance except our individual term, and you could argue that Dickson High School could be maintenance related, because we've got a big problem there. We've got drains that are a foot, go down at least a foot, drain that field that people fall in all the time. I think we've got some big problems there. Liability problems as well. Just a comment. Thank you.
Other comments, thoughts by board members? Mr. Chadwick?
This stuff page, this, but the spaces that were put in over Dickson Middle across the front there, 30 something. Spaces.
Ron's already gone.
So the teachers are parking out on McLemore. What were those spaces going to be used for?
Guests and handicap park.
There's handicap permitted there, and you have all the other spaces.
Those will be for parents that are coming to pick up their students during the day, dropping off items, things of that nature.
I've had some conversations with folks that live on back on board. And they come out to get in their car to leave in the afternoon and so mamas are parking in my parking space and I can't get out. You know, I mean, they're parking on the street beside his car. Truck can't get out. You know, it mentions they need to move. So
Other comments on this project? This is a project list. I would, Dr. Weeks, a little bit different than what your thoughts are. I mean, I would like to see us approve this list. And if we want to prioritize it, and here's the first 400,000, you know, here's the plan. And then that way this board could, maybe on a monthly basis, and ask for a budgetary amendment to approve all of those dollars. I mean, the entire amount, because it's a need. And then on a monthly basis, get an update as to where we stand on it. I don't know if it's in, you know, 3 parts, 5 parts, whatever it is, but that way it's spread out, but we would get an update as to where we are, if not not a regular meeting, maybe a work session, but I think the dollars are there. And I think we need to utilize the money for the purpose that it's intended, and it's intended to improve our system. Now is the time. Mayor Ryle said the other night, this is an opportune time. We don't have the significant growth that we're going to. Do it now while we have the dollars. Let's improve our system. Now's the time to do it. So that's my thought. I understand from where you're coming, but I would like to see us go ahead and seek a budgetary amendment that includes all of these projects, and then give the board the ability to follow up on it and ask the report each month. That's just my thought. Mr. Parker.
This might be a question for the director. Where do we feel comfortable taking our fund balance to? And I asked that question because I know that the state minimum is extremely low.
Yes, sir.
And makes us all cringe a little bit over what they say we have to keep in there. But where do we feel comfortable, and why do we feel comfortable there? I guess is the main question, because I just don't know that answer.
And it's quite philosophical. I'm going to start with a conversation that the mayor and I have had. The mayor says he likes between a 35 and 40% fund balance. So 35 to 40% of your expenditures. I think currently we're probably at 36% of ours, and that's pre-audit. So again, I anticipate fund balance going up this year from last year, fiscal in 23. I think that's a little high for me, but we have tried to mirror and match what the county commission has. So I think he reported the other night they're about 40% of their fund balance right now to expenditures. I personally feel comfortable with 22 to 25% of ours. So I'm probably a lot better, closer down to 20 than I am. I'm sorry, $20 million.
Yeah.
So currently we're in the $33 million. So I think we could easily spend down 13 or so. I would put the caveat in there that again, we have used ESSER dollars to come in and take care of some budgetary items. So I'd hate to go in right now and just take 18 or 20 out of our fund balance, not knowing how this year is going to shake out when all of those expenditures are going to come back onto this budget year. But I'd feel extremely comfortable if we took 10 out of our fund balance right now to take care of several of these items.
So, and to piggyback on that question, is the fund balance where it makes you comfortable? Is that because if our tax revenue does not come in as projected for whatever reason, for a world pandemic, then we'll use that fund balance to finish our budget out? Is that why we want it there, I guess?
Yes, sir. I think in essence so, because again, you know, as I was preparing packets for next week, and you'll see this tomorrow, um, we received about $1.7 million in sales tax in 1 month this year. We're budgeting probably 1.2, 1.3. So again, the economy is very healthy. I know the Fed did not raise interest rates yesterday as they had been projected to. So I think again that's at least a positive sign that spending is still going on and still occurring. So the property taxes are relatively stable, so I think we can count on that revenue. The sales tax revenue is volatile. This is the first year of the new TISA funding formula, so I feel very comfortable with what we've seen right now. I don't know where that's going next year. So there are a lot of unknowns in this year's budget cycle, and again, I respect what Mr. Vandervoort said, and I'm thankful, and I think everyone who works in the county that says this is a list of potential improvements and repairs that could be done that for many years prior to me coming here had not been taken care of and have been overlooked. I think we can use some of those dollars to easily come in and attack some of those problems, some of those things that need to be fixed, and some of those things that need to be taken care of before they become bigger problems. So, if you ask me where I'd be comfortable, those variables that I mentioned, easily I'd feel comfortable with the prioritized list going to county commission and saying, could we take, whether we want to do a total of 10 or if we want to do $2 or $3 million at a time. I think Mr. Vandervoort was recommending we just go ahead and ask to move it from fund balance over into capital projects budget and establish a Fund 177. That way, this board can manage that and see where that's gone, just as we would any other construction project.
I would like to see your list of priorities to the point of where you felt comfortable with the fund balance moving in the forward year. And I say that because I don't know enough, and when we start talking about $30 million, just kind of blows my mind a little bit. It's just high numbers that I can't wrap my mind around. But if we need to have a fund balance, a savings account for something that we feel comfortable, that the county feels comfortable with us having, that's actually lower than what their fund balance is, I don't want to dump everything we got at one time where we can't move it back or have to amend it to move it back. So I would like to see your priority list that brings us down to the point that you feel comfortable with the fund balance.
What do we spend, $7 million a month roughly on average? Higher some money to it.
That's a good average. Yes, sir.
We want to be in our reserve 3 months to survive it. It's not as much cut off as it is delayed from the end sometimes. Not always in our account, it cycles through.
And in 3 months, we can easily, if you said there were another pandemic or another whatever kind of situation came up, that gives us plenty of time to put the brakes on spending. And, we don't, those are normal operation expenses, $7 to $8 million. If we were in a crisis situation, we can certainly monitor how that's spent much more closely.
Other comments, thoughts, concerns? Dr. Weeks, you can maybe for the next regular meeting put together that.
I will.
Plan.
That will not be in your packets tomorrow, so it'll be here like this. So if we get that done over the weekend, I'll send that to you. Your regular packets will come out tomorrow. That list will not be in there because I'll put it in that order. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on unless there's other comments. We've already covered the building capacity 2C. Move on to district staffing.
Board members, there have been several questions asked. I've tried to include two reports in one, so if I've confused you, I apologize for that. The first question has been, can you tell me who works at central office? And when I consider central office, I think about all district employees. I don't think about just people who are housed in this building. And so you will see titles, and this is in no prioritized list. They're just really a little bit by department. But let's start at the top. Elementary Education Director in 2012, you'll see a check mark. That position was here when I became Director of Schools in 2012. Check mark in the column 2023, that position is still here. The Elementary Education Secretary, there was a half-time position in 2012. In 2023, there's a half-time position. The Grow Your Own and tutor manager was not existent in 2012 and is now present in 2023. The notes that you see is that it's an ESSER and Tennessee All-Core funded position, and there's an X in the far right column saying that that grant has funded that position through this school year. ELA coordinator, yes it was. Right-hand column, yes it still is. It was split into English Language Arts coordinator and split to a secondary coordinator, and you see that that is funded through the 23-24 school year. So you'll see the left-hand column basically explains, was that position here when I came, or is it here now? So you'll see some no's and you'll see some yeses in various columns, and some positions were here, some positions are not here any longer. So some of those positions have been removed or split into other positions. Again, the 23 column shows if it's here. And then finally in the notes column and the far right column, those are positions that upon preparing the next year's budget, someone will need to make decisions about those positions. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 of those positions that people will need to make decisions about. Be glad to answer any questions that you have on that report.
Board members' comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Haley.
That distance learning, is that the same as the virtual Renaissance?
Let me find it if you don't mind.
First page, about a third of the way down. Homeschool distance learning.
Homeschool and distance learning, yes, sir. We did not have that position when I came here. We created that position to help us sign parents up for that. Those that chose to learn by virtual means using our virtual program at Edgenuity. So it started off as a pilot program. We needed it in 1920 when we were full blown into COVID. And because some of those students are still using that program, and actually we have several students who are using our program as a homeschool program. So rather than losing their, they are still loyal to Dickson County Schools, just not in a regular school environment. So they're participating through homeschool through that program. And she does an excellent job of working with parents, helping them design select curriculum that meets their needs as homeschoolers, but also helps them for people that a normal school environment may just not be the most appropriate.
It's the same as the Renaissance position was when it was on the budget, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Comments on the staffing report?
If you see the check mark split between lines, let's jump down 2 or 3 lines from there where you see the CTE and technology director. You see that the check mark was kind of shared between those lines. So when I came in 2012, we had one person doing all CTE programs and one person doing all technology. And so we split that, and you'll see it split in the 2 columns next there, a CTE coordinator and a technology coordinator. So there's some places that it looks like the check mark may be on the line. So that's the explanation for those.
Mr. Parker?
How many of these positions would you say need an office at central office, just to give an idea of our new central office being built, how many of these offices are spread out around the county that need to be added and would have an office at a central office if it was built to house them all? And you ain't got to give me a number. Just like, would you say the majority of them, or?
I'm going to say the majority. Obviously, maintenance and transportation are good where they are. They need to stay off-site. They need to be in their buildings where those are. When we had some preliminary discussions about a new central office, technology needs to stay in this building because our technology wing back there has servers and miles of cables that are in the ceiling and underneath the floor and all that kind of stuff. So no matter what happens to this building, those that are related directly to technology, I could see staying in this building. And then I don't think, Mr. Parker, that all of these people need an office. I'm going to take some of the specialist, where you see a title maybe of a specialist, or some of our coordinators, I think, could easily do with, I don't like the word cubicle, but I'm going to use the word shared spaces. They could easily be in a room this size, maybe with some individualized desks, possibly cubicle-sized desks, but with a joint workspace, because the nature of their job is to network and share and build and plan ideas. And so, maybe 3 or 4 cubicles here, a small office there when we do need some confidential conversations, and then a nice work table in the middle of that space. So again, I don't think all of those are going to need an office. A lot of our instructional coordinators could do that. Some of our behavioral coordinators could do that. I think some of our finance office could easily do that as they are now. They're kind of isolated into a suite. They all have their own areas, but yet there's a commonality where they can work together. There is an isolated office in there that could be used for privacy if needed.
Thank you.
Maybe 2/3 of them probably need a designated office.
Dr. Williams. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
What's the difference in work-based learning specialist and work-based learning assistant?
The work-based learning specialist is a position that was required by the ISM grants that we received for the governor. And so the specialist is the one who actually, she goes out and does some teaching of classes, and she does some coordinating with industry where we can place some students on work-based learning, assigning them to different places, and kind of she's the liaison between industry and our office. The work-based assistant, in that case, she is a secretary for that position, taking care of paperwork, data collection.
Dr. Weeks, I want to ask you about a position that is not on this list. You're in a kind of a unique position to answer the question. One of the commissioners brought up the other night that our system does not have an assistant director. Just know, how many school systems in Tennessee have an assistant director? I guess, what are the benefits of having an assistant director?
I could not answer how many systems do have one. I've just not researched that enough to know. But I'm gonna say your larger school systems do, and just as a point of reference, we are the 22nd largest school district in the state. So 22 out of 145. That puts us near the top. The benefits of that, certainly. You have someone to share the workload, to share that, and I think there's some designations that the director is not always available to do everything. So having a person that is, again, it's like a principal and assistant principal. They work hand in hand. each of them have their own responsibilities, but they could focus on one set of responsibilities where the other could take care of another. And many times, an assistant director of schools fills the role if the director has to be out for an extended period of time. And in many cases, there are several assistant directors of schools who, when the director leaves, steps up into that role of director of schools. It's a natural training ground for future leaders, but it's not the only method of doing that.
Would we have to pay the director of schools as much? Don't answer.
Well,
No, thank
you've got your system set up differently though, as far as that goes, because we've got a secondary education director, so to speak. Robbie takes care of the high school, and then we got Miss Ernestine. And so, you don't have all those bombarding you, right? Because they go to them. So I like the way you've got your system set up, where you've got these directors under you taking care of that, and then you just direct this core group to do that. I think it's great.
Well, and it has been a pleasure to assemble that group together.
Yeah.
We meet every Monday morning, and when I say we as staff meet, that is not just instructional people. Our non-instructional people, our technology, our school health, our transportation, our maintenance, our food service directors sit in this room along with people you mentioned earlier, our instructional people. And so I don't think we want to call, pull out Ms. Garden. I don't think we want to pull Ms. Garden up here tonight and have her explain TVAS to anybody. But I will tell you that Ms. Garden has an understanding of student growth and knows that student growth is important, and knows that her role as a non-academic supervisor in providing transportation, she knows that's essential to having students at school on time, and she knows the value of her role and her department's role in the overall operations of the system. And so again, it's taken several years to assemble a team that you live with and you work with and you feel comfortable with, but you have an excellent team of supervisory staff here.
Board members, other comments or questions on the staff report?
Didn't you say last week you added 8 central office?
I think
Did I misunderstand that?
I think I counted 7 or 8. Yes, sir. And again,
26.
26 new.
Yeah.
I'll count that while y'all talk about something else.
We can go over it afterwards. But
We'll look at that.
I counted 26. I might have counted wrong. Give or take 26.
I will count that. The 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Now I didn't take out the ESSER,
Okay.
ESSER people, but
So there's 7.
so there's 8 there. I think.
Right,
that
those
we're gonna have to
positions-
fire or put in another position at the end of ESSER funds, but so that's still close to 20. But get with me afterwards. I might have miscounted.
We'll count on that. Okay.
Yeah, there's but 2 of them's ESSER, so that's only 3 in there.
Well, thank you for this report. I like
Yes,
it.
sir.
That's what I counted, 20. Other comments or questions on district staff?
Could we know names of these people?
Absolutely.
All right, hearing no questions, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is other planning dates, fall retreat. Dr. Weeks, that is September. That's Monday, right?
Fall district meeting is Monday. Yes. And so our fall district meeting we got word from TSBA that there will be 70 other board members and TSBA staff is included in that, I believe. So there'll be 70 individuals joining us. I think we had announced earlier that the Commissioner of Education is going to be able to join us, and she'll be with us that evening. I have not seen the agenda other than the timing of that. So again, we have heavy hors d'oeuvres at 4:30 at Creekwood High School in the library. Creekwood High School ROTC will be our host student, so they will be helping people park, directing them into the building, helping provide food service and taking care of them. We've put a lot of work into that, so I think you'll be very pleased with that evening.
Very good. Comments, more members, or questions?
You need something to eat? I'll be back. You'll
Be first in line.
Bring him some gummy bears. They can go.
What time is that? 4:30?
4:30 is registration. The actual meeting starts at 5.
All right, so we'll move on to 4B, athletic field visits. We have discussed that.
Yes, sir. And
What
again,
was
if we look for that October date, this would, I think, be best for everyone. The 25th, the date that we had put out.
From leaving
Leaving
afternoon.
probably, well, now that we've added another visit, I'd probably like to leave around 11 that morning. Probably take the rest of the day. I have invited one principal, one athletic coach, and the athletic director from both of our high schools to travel along with us.
All right, October the 25th, 11 a.m. Questions, comments on that? Hearing none, move on to the next item, Director of Schools search process. Board members, what I looked at, excluding the rest of this month, were about 61 days from Dr. Weeks being his last day. So took the liberty of printing off for you all. Doesn't mean we have to use them, but what we've used in the past. TSBA, Tennessee School Board Association, they have provided assistance. There are other folks out there. You all may have ideas, but they have a pretty structured approach. That's one. Two, the second, I guess really one of the first items maybe we need to talk about. It's going to, if we go the route that we've done before through that process, it could be anywhere between 3 to 6 months, which is longer than 60 days. So the question is, do we want to consider an interim during the time period? Again, throwing out ideas. I'm not throwing out directives. I'm suggesting. So that's an issue, an interim. And then number 2 in my mind is a search, what search process we're going to utilize and how we go from there. You all may have other thoughts. I'm just again throwing it out for discussion.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, our interim that's put in, I guess if it's not, the record's not replaced by the time that Mr. Weeks leaves, we'll put an interim in as if he puts an interim in for a principal. It would just be a place sitter that couldn't change anything, basically, I guess, or.
Well, what I envision is someone stepping in after November the 30th, when it was the 29th, I think is the date. And assuming the role on a temporary basis that would act in his place and in that, well, serve in that role until we fill the position, because they could be making decisions about whether we're going to school. We need that person in place.
We'll serve that role and then give them their role back.
Yeah. That, they could be communicating with media in as much as if something occurs. We need somebody in the place, in the position to as a spokesperson for sure and giving guidance, as we just talked about. We're fortunate. We have good people in place. To some extent, will move along, but we need somebody in that position. We're not- In 60 days. That being said, that's one of the reasons. So, what are your all's thoughts? I'll be quiet and listen. Yes, sir.
Putting on the search, I think it will be very beneficial. Okay, done. You've got the brochure, not doing it for you, they're doing it. They work for you or with you, on your direction, what you guys want to do. I think it'd be worth having you come out.
It's a good idea. The thought was maybe do it 6 o'clock, prior to the meeting, have them come, have an opportunity to go and speak to us. We can, you've got the brochure, we'll hear from them. Wait, I'll be back at the city before I get that process underway. It is. Take up. Don't know. So I think it's good to get it started. Sure.
Even though they're calling ourselves not, I think you need to take.
Post it as a planning session, 6 o'clock, 6.
I'll talk to you about that interim for a minute. Unless I'm missing something. Did you say you wanted to have an interim that would step in right when he leaves? Kind of keep going? Because I feel like that we need an interim sooner than that to work beside him. When that transition is smoother.
So,
Basically, go away. They were going. I mean, it's not going to be it should be a smooth transition with them working together. Is that the idea of moving along in this spot?
Well, I guess the thought you say you'd love to have an interim, be together some type of criteria, generally, and see who all is
Interesting.
right, see who all is interested within the system, or it could be something otherwise, but sure, someone within the system that's for that. Probably a work session was making it get sales calls on so the point being, oftentimes that position person going on to the director. So that's just a thought. So well, it's short-term basis.
What did you want?
Sure. Yeah. Put together criteria and then advertise it. Dr. Reese, if we could, I guess, advertise that we would be discussing the search process.
Here, you can appoint.
Sure.
On that.
Committee going to be limited just to the board.
Mr. Chairman, my thoughts are, that is our role, that is our job, is to hire the director of schools. Set a budget. So certainly, part of it is set policy. Certainly, we need input from the board. I think you're going to get that. I think you're going to hear about it. You're probably going to have work sessions, and folks will be able to see interviews and be able to we'll be able to hear from them. But I think it's our role to hire that person. I see these 6 seats as the selection committee. It is, but I understand. I think what
Maybe not as far as the interim.
right. We do the hiring, but as far as like an outside body putting out for recommendation to the board, I think that's who these folks are. That's why so that's just my thought. Discussion on that motion, anything else you can add, or? Director of School Search Process. Moving on to item 6, any other discussion? I have an item. That item is next week we'll be selecting officers. Where I appreciate having served in this role, I will not be seeking a nomination. What will,
I mean, you're not gonna get one.
sir?
That don't mean you're gonna get one.
Well, I appreciate it. But look, other people, I was reading, they were having a great debate over who was in a certain scenario where, one board member said, well, maybe every day. Well, no, that. Later the year. They do. I have enjoyed it, and there's been a pleasure. I think it's time for other folks to know that opportunity. If you don't know that, any other comments to come in there? Joe, thank you all.